Hello, and welcome to Timing is Everything, a program of Care Dimensions. My name is Mary Crow, Director of Professional and Community Education at Care Dimensions. We continue with our series of programs for you around hospice, a journey of care, through the lens of the interdisciplinary hospice team. Today our topic is hospice social work, compassion in action. We have the pleasure of speaking with two of our incredible social workers, Todd and Pike. Deb and Kathy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So pleased to have you here. So I'd love for you to tell the audience, Deb, I'll start with you. Tell the audience a bit about yourself and and we'll talk about your role, but tell them a little bit about yourself and how long you've been with the organization.
Well, I've worked for Care Dimensions for 23 wonderful years, and I started in my social work career really with being a hospice social worker.
But so you've been in hospice the whole time?
Yes, I have, my entire career.
That's fabulous.
Really, yes.
That's wonderful, Deb.
Yeah.
Thank you. Kath, how about you?
So I've been here 5 years, started just before the pandemic began, so got the feel of working pre-pandemic and through the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I came from the other end of life, beginning of life. I was a birth and postpartum doula and
Wow.
Very involved in postpartum care with new moms. So fast forward several iterations of my career later, I arrive at hospice and I discover that it's really similar work, beginning of life care and end of life care, ushering people, families through a journey.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
And I'm in facilities. So I don't do the home care here. I
Yeah.
work in assisted living, skilled nursing, and hospitals and group homes.
That's wonderful, wonderful. And you know, and I want to ask you this question because, and I'm asking everybody when I'm interviewing people on the interdisciplinary team, this is an important question for me, and I love to hear this from people. What brought you to hospice? What makes it so special for you? I'll start with Deb.
I did start, as I said before, my career at around 40 years old, and so that thanks to some time, life experience and all, I had a general sense of the things that I didn't want to do,
Yeah.
which was extremely helpful.
Yeah.
But what drew me to hospice care, I know that I studied in graduate school the needs of peripheralized groups, and I came to understand that the dying is one of those peripheralized groups. And I wished to kind of fulfill a niche, fulfill a need for people who can otherwise be isolated and can feel alone at a very, very pivotal, important time in their lives.
Yeah.
Validate their concerns, walk with them through, after birth, perhaps the most significant journey that a person will take.
Yeah, well said, Deb. Thank you. Kathy, how about you?
I came here because of both my parents. My mom died at age 51 from cancer, and my dad died at 90 after a full life. He was on hospice for a very short time. My mom, I really believe, kind of was a pioneer and led her own hospice care. She wasn't actually on hospice. It was 1981 when she died. I know we started in 78, I think.
Yeah.
So it was just at the beginning of hospice, I think, being popular. But
Wow, yeah.
she found her own spiritual counselor. She connected with groups. She was outspoken about it. She talked about her cancer because she didn't want it to be taboo, and she felt like it was taboo. So I grew up with that. That was were my adolescent years. And so death and talking about end of life was a part of my life, and it just felt normal to come here.
I always find it a gift when people can talk so openly about, and like you say, this is a stage of life that we'll all get to, always hopefully later than sooner, but I always think it's a gift when we can talk openly about this. So just as Deb said, so that we don't have to feel so isolated in this journey. So thank you. That's so Deb, I'm going to come back to you and just talk. So how do you support families emotionally and practically through this journey?
Those are kind of the two hats that I tell people that I wear, is assisting people in a practical manner to try to help them to address and perhaps complete some of the tasks and business of daily life through referrals, sometimes some footwork, etc. And then trying to address families and patients regarding their emotional reaction to what it is that they're going through, the concerns that they have, and trying to walk with them and support them emotionally, try to meet them where they're at in terms of what their own personal concerns and needs are emotionally.
Yeah, this is a very individualized, it's a universal thing, right? About death and dying, but yet it's so individualized, so personal, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, Deb. Kathy, let's talk to you about, how do you help people emotionally, psychologically in this dying process?
So I feel like the phrase Deb used, meet people where they're at, is a common social work phrase, but very common here. And it really depends where the patient is, where the family is, whether I bring up, for example, the funeral home, which is a concrete task we might want to get accomplished early on so they don't have the stress of it later. But I can tell, just getting to know a family, this is not the time to bring that up. I'm going to wait until another time down the road. And often I'll say, when it seems like a family is ready, this is just a planning tool, just like completing the resuscitation forms, all the planning that we do for end of life. It's just another one to select a funeral home.
Yeah. When you're talking, it sounds too, this is why I always talk to people about why it's so important to get on hospice sooner rather than later, because there's so much to do at this precious time, right, called end of life. And it's just, and the stuff that you're both talking about, how do we get to it if people are coming on and it's more crisis intervention when they just have hours or days to live? So it's really helpful to have people on so much sooner, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, so tell me, so Deb, you spoke about like the concrete, whether the resources. Let's talk more about that. So, what resources do you provide for families and during this hospice journey for patients and for families?
Right.
Really?
So it's pleasing to know and to be able to provide multiple resources that are available at hospice itself.
Yeah.
And and the social worker has the primary responsibility for providing those referrals, whether it's inside or outside the organization. But insofar as inside the organization, we have complementary therapies, for example, and those are non-medical interventions for comfort that include massage, Reiki, pet therapy, music therapy, and I try to deliver the offer with great enthusiasm, and patients consistently report that they have received memorable, experiences from receiving those services.
Absolutely.
We have a volunteer service, a whole core of people who come to us with a variety of different history and skills and backgrounds that provide a very important, actually something like 15% of patient care, which is over the top by like 10% over the national average, apparently. And they provide companionship, they provide doing errands, they provide support both to patients and to family members. Then we even have a family fund when people are having some financial difficulties, and we can try to help get them access to material things, whether it be a hearing device or some supplies that they don't have easy access to, that I can refer for. And there are several other things that are not coming to mind right away, but anyway.
And you can bring them up as they do, that's okay.
And then in the community, we often make referrals to a community elder services program. And veterans often already have a connection that with the VA that we can coordinate with to enable them to have kind of organized plan of care in place where we work with each other. We do a lot of collaboration. I have made multiple referrals to a home visiting podiatry nurse, which is a great convenience for patients. Sometimes we do assist with connecting people with funeral homes, and and act as a sort of a liaison between, because that can be foreign and sometimes nerve-wracking kind of process to go through.
Yes.
So those are some
Oh,
examples.
that's excellent examples. And I just feel like social workers are such a wealth of knowledge, and I'm not saying that because I am one, but I just know, I mean, there's so much that we have to have a lot of tools in the tool belt, don't we? In terms of making sure that we connect up. I think sometimes people feel that, and the emotional support is so important, but this is too. If we can't meet people's concrete needs, right, the basic necessities in life, it's hard to get to the other stuff, right? So those were great examples. So Kathy, let's talk to you about, let's talk about just family community, and feel free too to expound on those things too. So I don't mind if either of you jump in if you have additional things that you want to add to a question.
I did have a couple
Go
things
ahead,
I wanted
please
to add, just that we do love our resources, social workers, and we're connected, the North Shore and the South Shore. So every time we share a resource, we're sharing it to both sides, all of the social workers, and it's kept in a shared social work folder so we can re-access them. Where was the traveling dentist or the podiatrist? And it's just nice to have resources there. The other thing I thought about is I didn't realize until recently that the Reiki is for the family too, so not just for the patient. And we've had some really beautiful experiences where the patient is at end of life getting the Reiki treatment. Family members at bedside are also getting it. The patient's, it gives me chills just thinking about it, his heart rate slows and calms and is restful, and one of the family members fell asleep to the Reiki. So just a beautiful experience for the whole family. And there was a third thing. I'm not going to think of that one.
When you do, bring it up again. I love that you said that too, because what I really want people to understand is that hospice is not just about the individual. And I don't say patient a lot, it's just kind of my nature, only because, on hospice we know that people are human beings and they're treated accordingly. But people use it, it's not a negative term, but it's just, we really want people to maintain their individuality, their humanness, and their roles in life. And that's important, isn't it? So, but I love that you bring up this thing about the family, because they're a big factor. And I love that about hospice care, in addition to, addressing spirit, mind, and body, we're also addressing the whole network, whoever they call family. And I love that.
Yeah, and the third thing was allowing family members to be family members, and all the things that you list really provides that support, so they can just be the daughter or the spouse. And especially when we have family members that are medically trained, you don't have to be a nurse here. You can just be a family member and be with your family and be with your loved one who's at end of life. And it is so important kind of to give that permission.
Absolutely. And go ahead, Dr.
Well, I find that with in the role of social work, that's one of the privileges that we have, is that not only do we focus on patients, but individuals.
That's okay.
But in many instances, we end up focusing more of our attention on family members.
Yes.
And we're very fortunate that we have the privilege of doing that. And I know that the other team members also really appreciate that fact.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've actually had situations when in my own direct care work, when I had done that, where people actually wanted to come onto hospice for the betterment of their family. That it was, and even though they benefited too, they felt like there was an extra need of this, because they knew that it would be a benefit to their family. So whatever those reasons are, they're all good. They're all good. Yeah. Thank you. Kathy, talk about facilitating discussion, communication, decision making around this end of life journey.
Sure. So one of the things that we all see happen sometimes and pretty frequently is that end of life kind of can, not always, but can throw a wrench in a family. So when a family's going along just fine, maybe they're expecting this death, relationships get tricky and expectations, and what was once smooth is not smooth anymore. And I find it's really important to find a way slowly, carefully, to have the family come together. And sometimes it's in a room together face to face, or sometimes it's on Zoom, so we can be face to face, a video visit, or one at a time before we're ready to come together for a visit. And sometimes with the facility too, because I work in facilities, there are expectations about how things should work in the facility, and people are disagreeing on how things should work and how end of life should come. And I find it really helpful for each person to have their own voice and share what's concerning.
Absolutely.
And go from there.
You know, it's kind of an interesting question when I had put this, because there's so many different parts to this, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you took that aspect, because the communication does get complicated. Emotions, how can it not? When people are diagnosed with a serious or a life-limiting illness, life as we know it is forever changed. And it does complicate things. And I think sometimes people think, well, not in my family. Well, it's in every family, isn't it? And that things can arise in this way when emotions are running high. This is such a really personal, intimate, and emotional time for people. So I think that it's almost like to be expected that some of this communication and all can be complicated.
Yeah, and it's normal.
Yeah.
It's very normal, yeah.
But the other piece too, and I think, which just is coming to mind as we're talking, is then communication also is about how to acknowledge and really the person's wishes, their values, all of that. So that's where we start to talk about, are people communicating even prior to this, right? Even coming to us about, what are your wishes? What are your values? How do you do that? And that's where advanced directives, healthcare, we're going to talk about that. We're going to be doing a special show for National Healthcare Decision Month on advanced directives, healthcare proxies and stuff. I'll be speaking with an attorney who's coming in who specializes in this. But that stuff's important too. Like, how do we get families on that same page, right?
Yeah, and as far as talking to the patient, I feel like it comes in baby steps and building trust. I don't walk in and say, tell me what your wishes are and tell me all about your life. It really comes slowly, and they have to get to know me, and I have to get to know them, and they are wondering, can I trust her? Do I want to share things with her? I do have a patient who recently turned 100.
Wow.
And so I've been seeing him for 5 years, and just recently he started telling me lots of his life history, and he even said, I don't know why I'm telling you all this, but it's taken this long to get to know me and trust me.
Yeah. It's so important. Everybody has a story, everybody needs to tell it, and everybody needs somebody to listen. And again, I feel like social work is such a critical component of that.
I think that the social worker can catalyze, communication in a way that maybe formerly hadn't been achieved amongst family members, because they're related to one another, because they have a history. Complications can arise in communication, and having a third party who is not emotionally invested in the outcome of the family dynamics can really be sort of like the magic feather that can enable people to be able to communicate with one another, or communicate their feelings out loud when they formerly had more difficulty doing so.
So you're bringing up a couple of important trust and the building of trust, and that does take time. So again, why it's so important to have people on sooner. But the other piece to this is, how important is listening? I just, every time when you're both talking about this, and I just think that social workers generally do this well. And it's, people need to be heard. They need to be listened to. And I just feel like that's an important component of what you're doing.
And create that space when something's said, even if it's maybe a little difficult or sad. I don't have to respond right away. Even if I'm uncomfortable and I want to respond and fix it or whatever, it's okay to just sit and listen and wait for more.
Yeah, absolutely. So your presence. So that the power of presence and how important that is. Yeah, I think that this stuff can become so emotionally charged, and I think people wonder, are you a safe place for me to bring up my worries, my fears, my hopes, even at this time of life, right? And here you are, and when you can really sit and be present, I think that becomes clear to people.
I was going to say again, too, that I've had this patient for 5 years. He came on when I came on. It's been 5 years, so he's a perfect example of you don't come on necessarily to hospice and die. You can live years in slow decline.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think people hear that initial criteria, they often think of the 6 month. And that is one of the guidelines around this, but it means that, you know, given the person's diagnosis and the usual course, would they be surprised, the physicians, if they didn't die beyond that period? But everybody's journey is so unique and different, as we talked about, so people can go on for this period of time and still be eligible to be on hospice. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's an important point for people. Because usually, again, and this is why I think sometimes we're seeing people come on with just days or weeks to live, because they feel like they have to wait until that point. Don't wait, right? Don't wait. So, so what do you think, Deb, are the most important aspects of like the emotional support to patients and families around this really critical time? I know we've touched on some of them, but are there other ones that you feel are so important?
I feel that people, as they're nearing the end of their lives, are contemplating their existence. They're contemplating meaning. They're contemplating, where did I come from? Who am I? And where am I going? And I am eager to try to, you know, sort of expedite some of those conversations. I believe that the most important thing for a person at any time of life, but especially as they near the end of their lives, is maintaining a sense of their identity, their integrity, and I just want to do everything I can to help them to maintain that.
That is great.
I want to be, I'm gifted with curiosity. And so, and I think I get that across, because I genuinely want to know, you know, who are you and what matters to you? And I generally get a really good response from that.
People know genuine, and I always say they can smell disingenuine from a mile away. That's beautiful. That's wonderful. And I think, again, to be able to provide that to somebody, how is there any greater gift? Yeah, thank you so much. So, you know, we're gonna start wrapping up. We have a couple of minutes left, but I just want to ask each of you, share with what you will with the audience about, you know, a last thought, something maybe we didn't get to cover that you'd really want them to understand just about social work and hospice in general, whatever it is that you feel is important that you share with them now. You want to start, Kathy?
Yeah, I love to think about hospice as living our best life. That's really what it's for. We want to live a good life our entire life. The jobs that we choose, the schools, the friends, the experiences, and that continues, and it culminates finally in this orchestra at the end, and it's really about living our best life and surrounding ourselves with the best support and love and support.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, it's so important, because a lot of times that's not the mindset, right? And this is why sometimes people hear hospice and they think death and dying. We hear hospice, which is a kind word, right? It means to host, to hospitality, all of that. It's a wonderful word, and it actually, it is about living. And I hope that people take that away from this show, is that it's not about, it's a real, how do we help people to live fully for whatever time they have left? And I love the way that you phrase that, Kathy. How about you, Deb?
Well, you started to say before that many people don't want to, are hesitant, you know, to come on to hospice services until the very late stages of their lives. And I would like to shout out the message that you're, I shouldn't say entitled, but you have, via Medicare, you have this benefit available to you as long as a doctor or two doctors verify the fact that, given the average trajectory of your life-limiting illness. You could pass in 6 months or less. And as you also said before, many people stay on hospice for well over 6 months' time.
Yes.
So I would just encourage people to make use of this tremendous benefit. We're not here to take anything away from you. We're here to add something to your lives. We're here to add resources, add camaraderie, add companionship, add, love. We want to walk the walk with you for as long as we possibly can.
Oh, that's wonderful. I can't thank you both enough for being on the show today. I have to tell you how lucky are we, and certainly the individuals and patients and families that we serve out there, that you are touching lives, and I just really appreciate you being here today. I want to, and again, just such a valued part of the interdisciplinary team, so thank you both.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in today, and I hope that, again, you got as much out of this show as I did, and I look forward to you tuning in to our future programs.
A lot of people think that hospice is bringing somebody on in the last few days of life, and that may be true in some instances, but we really like to be able to bring people on a little bit early so that they can really benefit from our whole interdisciplinary team.
Hospice really is a support of services that can really help enhance the quality of life for patients and families. And that, again, it helps to give them a little bit more control over a situation that they may not necessarily feel in control of.
We focus on comfort, and we focus on allowing patients to spend the time enjoying their lives, doing the things that they enjoy.
You literally just pick up the phone and call them and they answer. Or if you, even in the middle of the night, I tell families, if you need somebody, you have a question, you're unsure about something, call. You're not bothering anybody. There's always somebody available.
Because we are expert, we know what to do. This is what we do to help people. If you are going through something there and you need help, we're here to help, and we are very good at it.